Yo, what's going on, YouTube? Today I just wanted to kind of share another story that I kind of found pretty interesting for the most part, right? So yesterday, my barber, he was out of state or whatever, and I needed to get like a quick haircut. Came out okay, right? But it was like some 6-year-old kid, he was from high school, was just cutting hair. He finished. I just needed someone real quick, so I just jumped in, right? And, he was just talking to me, was cutting my hair, what you want, a fade or this or that, right? And then he was like, yo, look, I'm 16 years old, right? 16. I'm cutting hair right now, I ain't making no money. I ain't gonna go to school, because he was just debating whether he was gonna go to school or just kind of quit the whole school situation completely and then just focus on cutting hair. He was like, look, I'm making money, I'm helping my mom's out, right? What's the point of going to college, right? And so then I asked him, I'm like, all right, cool. I get kind of where he's coming from, So I just pretty much asked him, all right, cool. So what are you trying to do? If you were to go to school, what would you go into? He's like, dude, I don't even know. He's like, why would I go into school and not know what I'm gonna be? So I'm basically gonna be in debt for nothing? And I'm like, yeah, no, and I get it, And here he was making let's say $40 a pop, for a haircut. He had 2 or 3 clients, so he was, let's say on a good day he's making a good $500 a day, and so he's just thinking about how can I just get my business this business up, even though some people think that cutting hair is not a career, right? But then he was just telling me about the pressure, right? He was just like, nah, but people always think that I need to have a career. My mom is telling me I need a career. I need to be a professional. I need to be this so I can, get out of being poor and being broke. Mind you, right? I did IT, right? And IT is just a different type of, career. It's not for everybody. Let's just say that. So I was like, yeah, no, I get it. I feel like I told him you definitely need to pick the right career and know what you're kind of getting into, because the last thing you want to do is jump into something, get into that, and then not like it, right? So whatever, we still, we're talking, and then, he really asked me a serious question. He's like, nah, for real, I'm really thinking about just dropping out. And it was tough, because I'm like, dude, I don't even know you. You know what I'm saying? I don't even know you like that, But I did tell him, and it kind of put me in a weird situation, right? Because on one end, I'm like, yeah, go to college, go into, become a doctor or IT or, But at the same time, man, America has failed, the youth in a weird way, right? A lot of these degrees don't even pay out that well. You're in debt when you come into it. You don't know what you're doing. You might waste credits. And at the same time, he's already trying to build his business. And I told him, look, at the end of the day, what you have going on is not a bad situation, And before you jump into, just going to college just to please your parents and please this, please that, you got to really think about what's going on in your life and what do you think is the best decision. He was like, nah, I think I can make I can save up $20,000 by the time I'm, in a year or two, and maybe I can buy a house. And it's not, I'm like, yeah, man. I mean, it's not bad to get into a trade, right? And I'm just gonna segue into this topic. It's yo, college ain't for everybody. Going to school ain't for anybody. And at the end of the day, there's such a bad stigma on a plumber or electrician or, blue collar work or barber. It's dude, if you're making money, you're making ends meet, you're providing, dog, that's all you need. That's all you need. And then you kind of build from there. If you need to go to college, if you need to go from there, you have money at least to facilitate whatever you need to do from there. You'll figure out life as you go. But, I kind of respected this young man, because it's not easy making these financial decisions at a young age, especially dealing with pressure, So, and I say this kind of, again, humbly, because my parents did help me out with, with my career. But, if you're a young adult and you're trying to understand, should I go to college? College is not for me. College is this, I think you should shadow a couple of fields of what you like to do. Ask around if you can, hey, can I spend a day with you? Do you like nursing? Do you like, accounting? What does a normal day-to-day look like for real? Not on YouTube where there's a day in the life. Really ask, is that possible that I could shadow you just for half a day just to see if this is something that I can see myself doing? And you know. And I think that we need to inform the youth too, like, yo, there's might be debt at the end of this tunnel where you may make 60, 70K when you maybe start out, but you got to pay off that loan. Then you got a car, you got this, you got that, right? So I just feel like, you know, no matter what you get into, you know, make your decision by, you know, I'm a true believer in dying on your sword. You ultimately in your soul, you know what's good for you. You know, don't follow other people just because they tell you, yo, this is the best advice. Yo, like I saw this person do it, so I think you can do it too. Yeah, that's great. But I think the most important thing you can do is just follow your instincts, you know, and I think that's like a lost art. You know, we just try to follow everybody else and not make your own path. And I think if you start doing that more, you know, you'll be successful no matter if you're a barber, plumber, this, that. It don't matter. It don't matter. So shout outs to him. He made me kind of think about this whole little situation, but things ain't like how it used to be. So with that being said, it's LP, you know, and subscribe, like the button, share. If you know somebody that this could help, share that, man. You know, there's a lot of people here that are really lost, trying to really make decisions out here. So anything that you could actually, you know, provide them with, you know, with information, man, pass that along. So yeah, that's about it.